first of all, thank you for being here. We didn't know what type of turnout we'd have. We felt, and if you have ideas later in terms of advertising to get folks to come to these type of meetings, it's very much appreciated. We brainstormed as a SAC, which is our school advisory committee, about how to advertise this evening, and I thought prizes would work. So when it says raffle there, I bought Costco run. So if we have no more than 30, guess what? Everybody wins. So we sent home a flyer. I'm actually sent home today one more time. Just maybe some people read it last second, like, oh yeah, I was going to go there. Maybe I'll show up here. So we might have some people trickle in. So what we have this evening is a couple school board members that I'll introduce in a second. We have some paper and pencils for you, and pens. There's a bag of pens over there too. If you would like to write down some questions, okay? And the topics, again, we'll pass this out. Maybe, Jamie, if you just could pass this out a little bit. Yeah, I'll give you a second. We kind of brainstormed some themes for our school board members to discuss with us all this evening. And so as you look at these, and if you want to write some questions pertaining to these topics, that would be wonderful. I just asked, I have four actually, of our SAC members, and we'll introduce them in a second right here. So if you write down on those cards the questions and give them to these ladies, and because what they're going to do is just kind of give common themes put together. And so after the school board members kind of give an overview, and one thing we've asked them to do up front is just kind of, one of the questions here is talk about the role. What is their role as a school board member for Douglas County School District, and what does that look like? Okay, so they kind of are aware of that as we begin, and it gives you time to ask those questions. So write the questions on the cards, turn them into one of these wonderful ladies here, and then, like I said, we'll continue to ask those, and they will just kind of the panel asking the questions of our two very gracious school board members for coming here at Iron Horse Elementary School and visiting with us this evening. So that's kind of like the overview of the evening. We have set from 7 to 8:30. If it doesn't take that long, we will definitely finish early. We have a couple gentlemen back here videotaping this evening. So Lydia, you got a little thing between your teeth there. You want to get out for the close-ups. And the reason for that is for those folks that weren't able to be here this evening, we're going to put it on our website, and so people can access it later. We always talk about communication, how we get the word out, and just being well informed as an Iron Horse community. And so, like I said, one of the things we're doing is going to videotape it. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here this evening to be able to do that. Okay, so like I said, people are going to trickle in throughout, and then if you, of course, you have to leave at some point, feel free to. And again, thank you very much for coming. I see several Iron Horse staff members here, as well as our community, and so that's pretty cool to see a cross-representation of folks here in our community. And hopefully you're here because we all have the common interest of doing what's best for our kids. I say that often to our staff, I say it in our newsletters, and that's what we are truly all about. So, quick history. Our school, our SAC, you got to have acronyms in education. We always joke about that. We even give a list of them with the definitions. But our SAC, our School Advisory Committee, we meet monthly to talk about school-related issues, from our budget to school safety to CSAP scores to anything that's pertinent to a school environment. And so I had received an email, and I know our school district is just wanting to continue the open communication, and so I'd asked the school board if we could have a time with them this evening, and they said yes. And so we, as a SAC, talked about that and what it could look like, and said, like I said, we developed some themes here. So we have, like I said, several members of our SAC that meet monthly. We usually meet on the first Wednesday of the month. Is that what it is? Yeah. First Wednesday of the month, usually in here, and I'm just kind of putting a plug if you would ever like to join us. It's an open forum. The first Wednesday of the month from 4 to 5:30 usually, right? Is that, yeah, I didn't think about that. Where, like I said, you're always more than welcome. We're also a voting group, and so sometimes we vote, which if you come to visit the meeting, you couldn't participate in the vote, but you could definitely listen in and have your time to discuss any relevant topics. And so a lot of people don't know what this SAC actually does. So I want you to be very well informed. If you ever have questions about it, you're more than welcome to talk to me or any of our members up here that are part of that SAC group, because again, we are always looking for more folks. Okay? So again, thank you. Thank you for being here. So again, our SAC members, we actually have several here. George, Selkie, Chad, Jamie, Michelle, Jennifer, and Sarah. And I think I got, and you popped in at swim practice. Her daughter has swim today, so Stephanie. So thank you for SAC being here and for those other folks that are able to make it as well. Okay? So I'm going to introduce, again, our two of our school board members for Douglas County School District. So thank you very much for being here. We have Doug, and I'm going to butcher your last name. So
give it a shot, though. Let's see what you come out.
I know it's Megan Silverthorne. So
give it a shot.
Benevento.
Benevento, that was close.
Okay, Benevento. And I'll probably say it wrong each time I say it. So thank you very much. So Doug and Megan, you're up here in center stage. And as I mentioned, kind of if you'd just like to share with us, first of all.
Is it okay if we sit?
You can sit, stand, whatever you like to do. Yep, no, you're more than welcome to do whatever. Just maybe kind of share, what is your role? What is your role as school board members in Douglas County School District? So the floor is yours.
Well, the school board, hello everybody. I really appreciate you coming out to kind of have a chat with us and give us an opportunity to answer some of your questions directly and to have a dialogue here. I think that's really important that folks like us get a chance to talk to parents and to staff members and to community members about things that are going on in the district. The role of the Board of Education is to set policy for the school district. Really, that's really what it is. I mean, there's a whole lot of statutory things that go along with that. There's a whole lot of lists of things that we do formally, but that's really what it's about. The superintendent is the employee of the board, and we direct her to carry out the policy that we set for the school district. So we usually don't get involved in school level minutia, that kind of thing, but we always want to hear about what you're doing. If you have concerns, if you have ideas, we want to hear about those because we have the ability to translate that into action. So we're all very action-oriented people, and we really want to hear about what you guys think. And I don't know if you have anything to add.
Just briefly, first, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for serving on the SACs. Thank you for teaching and working for the district. It's important. Times are tough now, and I think it's important that as a community we just are able to come together and talk about stuff. We're going to try and answer your questions tonight, or tell you we'll get back to you. I don't. You probably have more questions than we have answers. And if that's the case, we'll tell you and we'll get back to you. The school board's job is basically everything K through 12. From setting feeder boundaries to determining budgets to probably the most important role we play. That's what we do. We meet twice a month. People often ask, and the question I get most often is, how much time does it take to serve on the school board? I don't know what Megan's answer would be, but maybe depending upon what's going on, 20 to 40 hours a month, and most of that time is spent on weekends. We oversee all K through 12, including charter schools, which are part of the district, but sort of operate independently outside of a lot of the normal rules that are applied to neighborhood schools. We also oversee something that's real fascinating. I don't know, anybody here know Hope Online? No? And you probably know Hope Online. It's a fascinating program. It is a program where most of the students reside outside of Douglas County. And what it is, it's sort of the last chance. It's an online program, and they have learning centers. They have learning centers set up around the state. Fort Collins has a learning center, and those are Douglas County students. And what it is, it's sort of the last line, the last hope for certain students, kids who have dropped out a couple of times, who have had all kinds of problems, kids who may have kids, and need a sort of alternative learning schedule. And that's part of Douglas County as well, and it's just this wildly innovative program where you have kids going to basically a private institution outside of Douglas County, and they count as Douglas County students. And that's one of the big programs that we run, and it's probably unlike anything you've seen, or it was unlike anything in my experience. We serve 4-year terms. Megan and I are in the middle of our 4-year term. The terms are staggered. The next election will be in 2012, so 13. Sorry, I lost track for a minute. And that is what the school board does. If you have questions, I think that's how we'd like to spend most of our time.
Well, thank you for that overview, a little bit about what the school board does, and we've been collecting some questions, and feel free to bring them up this way as you are thinking of them throughout the evening. Just to let you know, there's a couple of questions that, or if there are more come in that I can address that are not necessarily school board related, and so I will definitely speak to those in a bit. But again, our wonderful staff group are busily going through those. So we'll start with the questions here, and again, just keep writing them down as you are thinking of them. So thank you. So go ahead.
Okay, we're trying to categorize them real quickly, but
So you are answering multiple
yeah,
questions over.
but we're just going to go down the line because not all of them usually fall into the category. How is the district working to implement the new Common Core state standard?
I think we, for those who don't know, the Common Core was something that the State Board of Education decided that was going to apply to the state. I think there was some debate about the utility of implementing something like that versus what we wanted to do locally. And I think there was some disagreement on the State Board. That wasn't something that we had anything to do with, but the Common Core now applies to us. So we have asked our folks who at the district who run the curriculum programs, who run the assistant performance programs, that is the department that stuff comes out of. So we have, those types of nuts and bolts fundamentals are not something that the board itself does, but we ask portions of our district staff, all right, we have our marching orders, this is what we have to implement now, bring to the board a report on how we need to do that. So that's what they're working on right now. We don't have an answer for what that looks like yet, but that's something that's being done as we speak.
Okay, we have a couple of questions along the same lines. Past school boards had a very good relationship with the union. Why has this relationship changed? Why does the school board want to bust or silence the union? The second question is very similar. The collaborative approach between labor and management has been shown to have tremendous impact on student achievement. What priority does this school board take with collaborative approach?
Part of the answer is, I think, inherent in the question, with the assumption that we're trying to bust the union. There's not been one school board member who has ever said that they want to do anything but work with the union. The idea that we want to go out and bust the union is false. It's not true, and that false impression is coming from somewhere, because it's not coming from the school board. Certainly, we want to collaborate with the union, and we have. We went out for a tax increase last year, which, by the way, isn't the most popular thing to do for elected officials in Douglas County. But we looked at it and said, this needs to happen. We're convinced that the need is there, and I was happy to put my name behind a tax increase because I felt that it was important, and I felt that we could convince the voters. We did, and we felt that we didn't get support from the union in that tax increase. We felt that they didn't come to the table with us. We shared that with them, and maybe that's part of the collaboration problem. But I'd like to see an example of where we're not collaborating with the union, because we have been at the table with them, we met with them. Megan met with them yesterday.
This
morning.
Yeah, I had what I consider to be a very productive meeting with 3 members of union leadership over lunch today. And I've had some pretty frank conversations with them, and I said, look, regardless of where this came from or who thinks, that so-and-so didn't do this or that, I want to say, all right, right now, let's just move forward. What's been said in the past, some of us don't even know. We hear things like this and we think, wow, that's not something that we've said, and that's, I've not heard the union say that either, so where is that coming from? It's sort of a mystery to me. It just kind of surfaces. And so I will tell anyone who asks, I am ready to work work with the union. And they've said to me that they're ready to work with me. So, you know, they have ideas about, here, I want to collaborate on this subject and this subject. And we said, we agree. We think that, like, for example, they said, well, performance pay, we're kind of worried about what that's going to look like. I said, well, every board member has the expectation that teachers are going to be the ones to design that, not the board. It's not going to be some top-down thing.
At a school-based level.
Yeah,
It's not going to, it's not going, one of the things that, you know, I think we all know on the board is we don't have all the answers. I mean, I have 2 kids, and trying to make decisions that are right for just my 2 kids is hard enough. I can't make decisions for 60,000 kids that are the right one. So our philosophy is the best decisions are made at the school level. The best decisions are made by the principal, by SACs, and by the teachers, and by other employees in the school. I don't know why that's controversial, but it disappoints me when we get questions like that again are not really questions. That question was a statement. We are out to bust the union. We're not. We haven't done anything to indicate that. We have ideas. I don't know if the union agrees with all of them, but we're willing to work with them. What we seem to be hearing back a lot is from some source that because that we're trying to bust the union, and we don't know where it's coming from. We wish we did.
It sounds like, or just from what I've heard, you guys are trying to put limitations on, for instance, communications from the union to school staff, and having to give notice to when the union wants to meet with them. Why would the board even get involved in that? Shouldn't that be something between a union representative and whichever school?
Well, it's district resources. The genesis of that, I'll be honest with you, was from me. Because what we kept seeing was information being passed out that was flat wrong. And if we had been able to review it before it went out, we would have been able to go to the union and say, that's not right. You probably heard we have a $66 million reserve that we're sort of squirreling away and making cuts instead of spending that $66 million reserve. That has been printed, that has been put out, that has been distributed. It's not true. We don't. We have a $20 million unobligated reserve, which Moody's, our bond rating agency, has said is the reason why we're maintaining our bond rating, because we have a healthy reserve. Given where the economy's at right now, a healthy reserve gives the rating agencies some comfort, who are getting pretty tough, by the way, since the housing catastrophe a few years ago, some comfort that we'll be able to meet our obligation. So our unobligated reserve is $20 million, and that $20 million is what we're using as a buffer, and part of a buffer for any additional cuts that come from the state level, and also as a mechanism for maintaining our bond rating so that we can go out and still issue bonds and do it at a low cost.
2 years ago, I don't know if this is something that you folks dealt with as a SAC, but the state at the end of the school year came back and said, we want $9 million back from your school district. And had we, you know, it took us by surprise, and we said, well, if they do that again, which is entirely possible, if they do that again, then that's just going to wipe a small fund balance out as we've gone, and we're going to be back to negative territory like we were 2 years ago. So I don't think this is about, I mean, it is about district resources to some degree, but it's also about maintaining that collaboration in some ways. I think it's about, you know, as far as it's bringing the union in line with other groups that we have policies on. I have no interest in silencing anybody. That's not how any of us operate. We want to hear from everybody, and that includes the union. And if I didn't want to hear from the union, I wouldn't have had lunch with them today, and done so in the past. So I think if people have questions or feel like a specific policy is indicative of some other motivation or some behavior, then I want to hear about it. I want to have that conversation with whoever feels that way.
Well, excuse me. I think part of the impression comes from the proposals that are on the table right now, and that's for the negotiating teams. But other than the financial ones, everything else is as Jamie said, is to is to what, and use a good term, to silence the union, limit the number of how long it takes to get into a school, take away the ability to deduct payroll deductions for union dues. I just had
Getting rid of TOSAs.
eliminating the, and it's been past history in Douglas County, the district has paid for half the salaries of the people in the union office who spend most of their day working for kids, working for the best benefit of what's good for kids.
And I have to tell you,
we're going to eliminate those salaries and those people.
We haven't seen that. I mean, I'll have to tell you, with respect to the union dues, there are a few things that happen. If you're going to use district resources to collect the dues, we've asked the question, where are those dues being spent in Douglas County? What we've been able to see is they're not. That the money's collected, and at best it ends up in Denver, and a lot of it ends up in Washington, D.C. And what we're asking is, why aren't you putting that money back into Douglas County? And it's not happening. And we just may have a disagreement on the TOSAs. I haven't seen that, they have not presented to us anything that would indicate that in fact that most of the TOSAs time is spent in the classroom. But that's $300,000 a year. And we can do a lot with that money for schools instead of paying the union employees. And so we may just have a disagreement over that one.
That may be. Other factors that lead to this impression are that articles in the Castle Rock paper back in February, where another Dan Durkin, school district board member, attended the school choice convention in Castle Rock, where it was quoted as pointing to teachers' unions as contributing factor in a broken system. There is nothing wrong in the U.S. educational system that breaking the power of the unions wouldn't solve. That was the committee statement that Mr. Durkin was on. And that was followed up by a chairman of a Republican committee who supported what the board is doing, calling the union thugs, quote, left-wing radicals. So, you know, it's
you'll have to ask, I mean, that, you'll have to ask the chairman of the party about that. You shouldn't ask me.
Well, no, he was referring to who was going to come to the board meeting.
Well, but again, you'll still have to ask him about that, because I'm not here to defend him, or I'm not here to explain his statements. What I'm saying is, if you want a rationale for what we've put on the table with respect to a union contract, yes, I personally don't believe we should pay TOSAs anymore, because I haven't seen, and if there is demonstrated evidence that the work they're doing is contributing to education in Douglas County, I'd be open to listening to that. But I don't have that evidence. What I know is that we were spending $300,000 a year to pay for union employees. And I just can't, in these tight economic times, look parents in the eye and say, well, that's okay. I can't do that. With respect to collecting dues, if you're going to ask the government, basically the district, to collect them for you, then I think that as an elected official, I have the right to say, how is that money being used? Where is that money being returned to Douglas County? Because I don't want to use district resources to do that if in fact the money is just being dispersed for a lot of other purposes, including bluntly a lot of political purposes that around Colorado and the country. I just don't think that's what the school district should be doing. So if those are the issues, we may just have a disagreement. On a lot of the other issues, I'm hopeful that we can find agreement, though. On the issue, we think a pay increase is important, and we think with the resources we have and the amount of money that we have cut out of central administration in this district, we can give a pay increase. It's 1%, but you know that's where we're at economically. We think we can give retention pay to teachers of 1%. We think those are things we should be able to agree upon. We think we should be able to agree upon pay for performance with the union. It's been difficult to work with them on that issue, but I'm hopeful that we can. Megan, do you think?
Well, and as far as paying the salaries of some of the folks that are dedicating their time to the union, I understand that, I mean, they're the union, they have a job to do to advocate for teachers, that's what they're doing. But when we approach them about establishing some standards, if we pay 50%, then they spend 50% of their time doing work for the Federation, and they spend the other 50% of the time working with the district because we're paying them. We wanted to establish some accountability and some standards. And they said that they would prefer not to do that, and that we would, that they would pay their own folks themselves. And we said, well, that was fine. And now we have a little bit of a disagreement because I think there have been some second thoughts. So, I mean, that's what I've heard from my staff members. And so I think that's in the process of being ironed out. That's a negotiated item. That's not something that we can resolve tonight, but that's what my understanding is.
Let's go ahead and move on because we have a bunch of questions. I wanted to follow up on something that you mentioned. You have lots of questions about performance pay. One in particular is if you're going to be implementing performance pay, what will it look like? Will it be about degrees, bachelors, or doctors? What if your first-year teacher has a great class and a veteran teacher has a challenging class academically? How will that translate to performance pay? I guess just more details about what that means, if you know that.
Well, I think part of it, like I said before, we don't want to start dictating, well, this is going to be worth this and that's going to be worth that. It's partly about what's going to attract the best teachers here. And we already know that from recent career fairs that there are two places teachers want to go. They want to go to Cherry Creek and then Montgomery. And when the doors open to these career fairs, there's stampedes to those two places. So we're very proud of the fact that people want to come and teach here. We want to obviously establish a system that is going to be attractive to new teachers and to existing teachers. So I don't want to kind of get into speculating on what this is going to be worth or what this is going to be worth. I think we're talking about career letters with teachers. How can we collaboratively work on career letter proposals? How can we work on a performance-based system such that it updates what we currently have, but moves past that. It becomes valuable for all teachers and treats them like the professionals that they are. And we want to do that in collaboration with teachers. We aren't interested in dictating, like Doug said. This is not going to come from the board. This is going to come from our staff, and it's going to be a collaborative effort.
And the schools. I mean, it can't come from Castle Rock, I mean, sort of Wilcox building either. It's got to come from the schools. Yes?
I'm sorry, so what schools, what teachers are going to be helping you do this? Do you already have those people established? Is it something you're still searching for, or are we still talking the cart before the horse again here?
I don't think we're talking the cart before the horse, because there's a bit of a, sometimes, heads you win, tails you lose. If I came here with a plan and said, this is the plan, folks would say, well, you've got the plan, why are you asking us? If we come without the plan, folks say, well, you've got the cart before the horse, you don't have a plan, you're going ahead and you don't know what you want to do. I think what we'd like to do, and I know Liz Dr. Fagan has talked to some principals and has talked to the union, because part of it is establishing some baselines and benchmarks, and we were working with the union on that up until I think late last year when that effort sort of stalled. So if you want specific names about who we've been talking to, I can get those for you. But it has been, one, it hasn't been just the board. Two, it hasn't been just folks in the Wilcox building saying, well, this is the way it's going to be. It's been a broad-based set of internal stakeholders who we could say, how do we measure this? How do we pay people based upon their performance?
Is there any thought of looking at districts like Denver or...
Yeah, their ProCom systems really, yeah,
right.
Sorry, I interrupted, I apologize.
No.
Yeah, no, their ProCom system's real interesting, and I read that. It's been a while since I read it. I think it's, my impression, again, it's been, I read it about a year and a half ago, so it's not fresh on my mind. I thought it was a good place to start. I thought what I'd like to know is what their experience has been with it and how can it be made better. But yeah, I do like their ProCom system. I think it's probably enough experience with it now to sort of make it better. But that's a great point.
Do you know if the district has applied for teacher incentive fund grant funding through the feds? There are lots of districts across the country, including Colorado, that have that funding, and once they get funded, they enter into this tremendous collaborative with other districts across the country working on this issue. Has the district pursued that?
No, I don't know.
I spoke to Liz about this issue also. There's kind of two factors. The Douglas County, because we have so much money here, right? We have a hard time sometimes getting grants, but at the same time, we are actually recruiting better grant writers to pursue that. I mean, we want to do that. I mean, I know that there's a number of opportunities out there that we would like to throw our hat in the ring for and hopefully get selected so that we can get in on some of those best practices with other areas.
Okay, we have a couple of other questions that are, again, along a similar vein. Mostly around morale of teachers, questions around seeing fellow coworkers who have left the first chance that they can get. For those that are still here, the morale is drastically decreased. What is the board planning to do about this? Also, 86% of the employees believe that the district is moving in the wrong direction. If the parent survey shows a similar result, will you change your agenda?
Well, I think I'd like to know what that individual who asked the question thinks the agenda is. Because I think there's a number of broad-based things that we've pursued, and I'm not really sure exactly what that's referring to. I think one of the things that I've been doing, and some of you may remember that a few months ago I stood up and stated that I was particularly interested in communication, and not to say the rest of the board is not, but that's something that I wanted to pursue as my personal project. And I've been doing that. I've met with HR, and I know HR has visited a number of schools, and I've spoken with teachers about what's going on, what's on your mind, what do you perceive the morale as being, what would you like to see differently, that sort of thing. A listening tour, and I've sat down with HR and spoken with them about the results of that. And I think that I'm really actually, on one hand, I was shocked at some of the things that came out of that, because those are the sorts of things that aren't necessarily readily apparent to folks like us who don't work here with you in the district. But at the same time, I thought some of these are just pretty simple, I think. That, either simple misunderstanding or simple things that we can do to change things such that it becomes obvious how much the board and the administration values teachers, wants teachers to be a part of the district future, wants them to stay, and we want to incentivize great teachers to stay. We want to recruit new great teachers to come here. And all that, to me, is fundamental. It's very boilerplate to me. But it became obvious to me that somehow my thoughts and my assumptions are not translating to show the teachers at large. So as far as what we're doing, I think there are a number of initiatives that we're kind of starting up, and we're also trying to do our best to show teachers, look, we're all kind of adults here. We all understand that this is that these times are difficult, but we want to do the best we can to work together to say, all right, let's make lemons out of lemonade, and let's go forward. So this is just kind of in the beginning stages of what are we doing? What are we? And it may seem kind of incredible to people, but really, we are beginning to really understand some of the things that are going on, and some of the misperceptions that are out there, and some of the things that, again, like we said earlier, we don't really know where they're coming from, but now that we know what they are, we can get correct information out there so that everybody understands. Here's what's happening.
On your listening tour, what were the greatest concerns that were brought up?
I think
on the morale spectrum.
Right, and there's some broad-based themes. I think Douglas County has been an amazing district for some time now. Rick O'Connell did an incredible job of building it up from almost nothing, and when he left, you had a large district that continues to grow, and people developed a sense of pride. Douglas County is a place people are proud to be living in, proud to be from, proud to teach in, proud to work in, and people worry that that's slipping away. And we say we want you to continue to be proud, and we want to work with you to maintain that pride and to restore pride that's been lost. Teachers want to be appreciated and recognized. Teachers want to know that staff, administration the board members value what you're doing and want to recognize you for doing that. And I think there have been individual actions and particular themes that may have indicated just to some folks, this is, and a lot of it, I mean, you've kind of captured some of it nicely in some of your commentary. Like this sort of thing becomes a flashpoint in the community. This sort of thing is something that, you know, people hear about and they start telling their neighbors and start telling their friends. And then it becomes a much bigger deal than it was originally meant to be, perhaps. So I think there's a lot of that. There's this sense that, especially now that we were entering into negotiations, and this is not something, again, that we're going to solve here, but you have this idea that that teachers value certain things, and what are we being asked to give up, and what are we getting in return, and there's some anxiety. And I'm hoping that the open negotiations process can help with the dialogue along the way. So I think, I haven't by any means been, have I captured all of it, but that's, it gives you an idea, I hope, of some of the things.
And the big one's the economy too. I mean, nobody here probably still feels good about the economy. I frankly don't. It's not, you know, everyone here is probably less wealthy than they were 4 years ago, even though you've been saving and you've been working. And that sort of level of stress, I think, permeates throughout everything that it does for me. You know, my job, my home life. I mean, wanting to make sure that, you know, you're saving money to put 2 kids to college, but you're also saving money in the event you get laid off. So you're also saving money so you can afford to take the Grand Lake vacation we'll be taking July 22nd, 23rd this year. And so I think that overlays a lot of what's happening. I think people feel stressed. If they feel like me, they feel stressed. They feel stressed about what's happening. And they hope it's getting better, but you don't know. I mean, you see the gyrations in the stock market. It's never a good thing when it's up 100, down 100. It's not a good thing when, you know, the Fed says they're going to keep interest rates at near zero until 2013, 2014. That tells you about how our economy is doing.